Hey, it's Lloyd here. Last week, talked about there's one phrase that I said we use that has shot us in the foot. I don't really care what industry you're in, although I think that the industries where we don't want to be seen as a commodity are probably the industries that have been the hardest for us. Sorry, I had to make an adjustment here. But regardless of the industry, I think that one phrase that we talked about last week has had a huge impact on the service delivery and in other industries that has made us a commodity when in fact we're trying to present ourselves as this highly trained licensed professional or this professional that can provide advice and consult with people to increase their benefits, eliminate their problems, gain more business for them, slow down the rapid loss of business, improve retention with customers, all those kind of things. But we use that one phrase that is kind of a block to onboarding people. And I think we use that phrase because everybody else uses it. And when we use that phrase, we don't really take into account from our customer's point of view what that phrase means. And that phrase was free trial. I'll give you a free trial. And last week I talked about it's not really free, right? We spend a lot of time, energies, and resources getting to our prospects, getting in front of our prospects. And Stephen Covey said that you always think with the end in mind. So what is it that we want our prospects to do? What is it we want them to do when they come on board with us? And I think what we want them to do is, I could be wrong. I know the onboarding process and the goal of what happens when we get in front of people is different for different businesses. But I think what we want them to do is become a customer, right? We want to do business with them. And so what happens is we don't put ourselves, as a business owner, as a sales professional, as a leader, we sometimes forget that we are also a consumer. That's shocking to people. We're actually a consumer. And so the same reasons and ways that we don't do business with somebody are the same reasons and ways that our prospects don't do business with us. And I just don't think that we understand that and project that into all of our activities. So if we think with the end in mind, when you talk to somebody about getting a free trial, the Olympics just ended. And in order for you to qualify for the Olympics, you had to go through a trial, right? Just like to get on a football team, you go through trials. To get on a baseball team, you go through trials. And tons of people will try out, but not everybody makes it. So what does a free trial mean to our customer? Well, I don't know how giving a free trial, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't give free trials. Go back and watch the video from last week. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about the terminology, the messaging. When we talk about having something for free, what does the prospect actually invest? They don't make an emotional investment. Sign up for a free trial, I'll check on it. One of the number one reasons why conversions don't take place with free trials is because the people who sign up for the free trials don't ever actually activate it. Or when they do activate it, they don't actually do anything once they get inside the free trial. And what's missing is any type of commitment. What's missing is selling the value that they get from the ultimate use of the product or service. What we're selling is the free, no obligation. Just like when salespeople call you up and say, oh, this will just take a minute. Just finish the sentence. This will just take a minute because your time's so much more important than mine. You're so much more busier than me. What I have to present to you is not that great of a value. It's not going to really change your business or your life any. So just give me a quick minute because I know you're not buying anyway. Just finish the sentence anyway. So we have to understand what that concept of free trial means. The word free indicates there's no investment. Well, in fact, that's not true. In order for a prospect to take advantage of your free trial, they have to stop what they're currently doing. Presumably, they have to fill out something, download something, click on something, They have to take their time and energy away from something else that they're doing in their life, which they clearly think is much more important, or they wouldn't be doing the free trial. They'd be jumping on board to solve the problem, right? And the next part of it is the trial. The inference in the trial is that you're not really making a commitment. You're not really getting all the benefits from it. You're only trying it out. And we know what happens when people try something. People try something to rule it out, not rule it in. And the numbers speak for themselves. Statistics speak for themselves. When people do a free trial, they click 3 or less items inside the free trial before they quit doing it. And you can watch the numbers. You can watch the graphs go up and down. So that's why I'm not a big proponent of the marketing message of free trial. I like the marketing message that I talked about last week that engages people. I like the marketing message that throws the gauntlet down. I like the marketing message that aligns us with the prospect. I like the marketing message that makes the prospect feel like that we're working on a team together. And I like the marketing message that makes it sound like and feel like we're putting them behind the driver, the steering wheel. We put them in the driver's seat. And you hear me talk about this all the time, the test drive. Before you take a car out for a test drive, you get behind the steering wheel. Maybe the car salesman sitting next to you or sitting behind you. Maybe your spouse or significant other is in the other seat. Do you adjust anything? And most people tell me, yes, they adjust the steering wheel up and down. They reach over and adjust the radio. They might adjust the air conditioner. They adjust the side view mirror, the rear view mirror, the other side view mirror. They adjust, and here's what I always say. I would submit to you that what you're doing is you're adjusting the things you use the most in the order you use those things for the purpose of making that product fit you. So how can you help your prospect adjust your product or service to fit them? That's why I like the test drive concept. Let's get you signed up for a test drive. Take it for a cruise, run it through the measures, see how you can benefit from it, find out what works for you. I mean, I think that's a really different message than the free trial. So, okay, Lloyd, we got that. I could watch the last video. You didn't have to take 7 minutes and 36 seconds to go through that. What's this next word? I came on here today to see what this next word is, and I'm going to show that to you. In fact, I'm going to share my screen, see if I can do this correctly. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to go through, here we go, and I'm going to go through a little presentation on, all right, there we go. So what I'm going to, all right, hang on just a second here. It's like, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Hang loose. It'll get worse. I mean, it'll get better. There we go. I'm going to share the window with you, right? There we go. All right. So what I want to talk to you about is why I don't quote, and I haven't for years. I hate the word quote, and I get it. It is enmeshed in every industry. You can't go on any website, get any email, social media posts, direct mail. You can't, everywhere you go, people are asking you, let me give you a free quote. That's what they're asking you to do. So what I want to do with this theme in mind of thinking about the end and keeping the end in mind, understanding the marketing message, and I don't just mean our message, I mean the message of what the prospect hears. What do they hear? How do they interpret your message? So to the prospect, what does the quote mean? So I just want to ask you a couple of questions about the word quote. So listen, I started in sales years and years ago, more years than I care to remember. I sold swimming pools in California back when it was popular to sell swimming pools. I've been in door-to-door sales for years. I was with Combined Insurance Company, the best sales training program in the world. They taught you 2 scripts and 3 rebuttals, and that's it. And you learn it word for word before you go out in the field, and you are always prepared. I helped run a call center, 110-seat call center. I led a large captive distribution for a large insurance company. We sold health insurance, life insurance, annuities, $52 million a year in business. I did business to business credit card processing, finance programs for small businesses. I ran my own broker-dealer agency in the financial service industry. I guess you name it, I've had some role in it. And over this time, I believe I've hired and trained, probably thousands of salespeople and hundreds of managers. And throughout all of this experience and failures in constructing a sales presentation, having learned from many great people, I don't really know that much at all. All I can do is share with you what I learned from my own mistakes, and then pair it back to you the great wisdom I learned from other great talented salespeople, leaders, and managers. And I've had a bunch of them, and I've had a bunch of losers too. But here's the thing. There's a few selling principles that's become an integrated part of my sales personality. And one of these is the importance of words. The words that I use, the words that my prospects use, and what they mean to each of us. I want to make sure that what you heard is what I meant. And I want to make sure what I heard is what you as the prospect intended. And one word I started transitioning away from years ago was the word quote, and the different contexts that this word is used in. Years ago, I stumbled across problem-based selling. And by that, I mean that my prospects were never, ever interested in my product. They were barely interested in me, and they weren't the least bit interested in my company. And what I learned is what prospects are interested in is themselves. Isn't that ironic? They're interested in the things that impact them and benefit them the most. So in this learning process, the principle of selling the problem became a huge eye awakening for me. And because people like to solve problems in their own life, then it's only at that point that they become interested in anything that I have for them. You see, people hear from their frame of reference and people talk from their frame of reference. And as I became more proficient in selling, I moved from spending my time making sure that the prospect understood. And we all do that. All salespeople do that. I want to make sure, salespeople tell me this all the time, I want to make sure the prospect understands what they're buying. I want to make sure they understand what I'm selling. I want to make sure they understand what, we spend all of our time wanting to make sure they understand something. There's an old saying that in sales, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And what we really have to do is we have to become more in tune with being more understanding about what the prospect meant when they said something, understanding how and why they make their purchase. And in this process, it became painfully apparent to me, after years and years of falling flat on my face, after years and years of calling my wife out in the field saying, I'm coming home, and her saying, did you sell anything? And I mean, that's gut wrenching. It's like a kick in the gut, like all the air comes out of you. You don't know how to respond to it. You know that your family's dependent upon you having made a sale so that your son's soccer team can be paid for, so that your daughter can get the new prom dress that she wants, so the car payment can be made. I mean, there's so much pressure. And to hear that question, and we get defensive. The reason people, have you ever had someone say to you, don't be defensive? Well, the reason we get defensive is because we feel attacked. Now, even if we make that up in our own mind, my visceral reaction when my wife would say, did you sell anything? Would be, why do you ask me that stupid question? If I sold anything, I would have already called you and told you, hey, guess what? Woo, we made some money this week. So it's such a gut-wrenching experience to go through. And after going through that for years and years, I started slowly realizing this concept that I was using words that had a different meaning to the prospect than they did to me. And the prospect was saying things that had a different meaning to them than it did to me. Listen, the word quote in a lot of instances is used by salespeople as an effort to get an actual presentation. Let me give you a free quote. And we're doing that in a lot of cases because we're desperate. We think if we get a free quote that we're going to have the best price and then the product will buy from us. And at that point, aren't you just being an order taker? I mean, isn't that the fear, is that we're just going to end up being an order taker for the prospect? And if all we're doing is selling the free quote, then haven't we made ourselves a commodity? So it only comes down to, do you have the best price? And price is rarely the largest reason why people buy. And this free quote thing is usually couched in the context of no obligation, a free quote. Can you imagine obligating your time? Like, you take the time, resources, and energy to get in front of a prospect. You take an hour out of the field to be with one prospect. You invest an hour of your time that you will never get back, with no expectation of the prospect investing anything in you other than that hour, because you do not lay it out up front that there's any obligation. It's not a reciprocal relationship. So in my opinion, pitching a free quote is the last ditch effort to get an order, not help a prospect make a purchase that will solve a problem or improve a situation for them. That's why I think we need to sell the problem that people have and quit trying to give a quick quote. So let me ask you this. Is that quote free? Or didn't you spend a lot of time, energy, and resources getting in front of that prospect? I mean, it's not free for you because you're investing your time. You invested the lead money. You invested your resources to get in front of that prospect. Well, Lord, that quote engine's on my website. Well, aren't you spending money every month for that website? Don't you spend money to market that website? Isn't that real estate where that quote thing is on your webpage? Isn't that real estate have value to you? So it's not free, and it's not free for the prospect. They still have to take the time to do it. And if they're taking the time to do it without making any commitment or emotional involvement, then you might as well finish the sentence. And I'll show you what that is in a minute. So my question is, should there be an obligation for your expert counsel and experience? I mean, if you're going to take the time, energy, and resource to meet with a prospect, and at the end of your meeting with them, they end up with a better product at a lower cost, with a more reliable company, and a great salesperson, who will always be there for them, someone that they can always count on, are we wrong for expecting some obligation from a prospect? I don't think so. Listen, I think I'm a normal consumer, and the reason and the way that I make purchases is, for the most part, very similar to the way that your prospects make purchases, and for similar reasons. So let's just take a minute and let's look at the buying behavior and the word quote. Just take a minute to look at it. Remember, the mind's like a parachute. It only works when it's open. So let's look at this word quote. When is the term quote most often used? When in that buying behavior is one of the times you first encounter the word quote. For a lot of people, it's when you get in some kind of car accident, right? You contact your P&C agent and they tell you to go get a quote. In fact, even if it's not a car, if you're going to buy new carpet, you go and get 2 or 3 quotes, right? If you're going to get your car fixed, you get 2 or 3 quotes. Maybe you're going to have yard work done. We just had some tree branches knocked down. We got quotes for it. We had all those branches taken away. We got a quote for it. You see it nowadays all over the internet for insurance of all kinds, don't you? Get your free quote. So let's just take a minute and look at that buying behavior of the average consumer. When they encounter this word quote, in this example, when they have some kind of car accident, now just think of this question, just answer this question, whatever the normal answer is. I'm not trying to trick you, there's no bait and switch here, just whatever the normal answer is. What does the average consumer do when they have a fender bender? They contact their P&C agent, right? And they're told to go get a quote, even if if they're sent to the agency's um, car repair place first, they can get 2 or 3 quotes. So here's my question for you. When you get that first quote, are you getting that first quote for the purpose of making a buying decision? Or are you getting that first quote for the purpose of comparing to the next quote? Just take a second. Take a second. Be realistic. Be honest with yourself and answer that question. When you get that first quote, are you getting that quote to make a buying decision? Or are you getting that quote to compare to the next quote? And if you're like 80% of the consumers out there, you get that first quote to compare to the next quote. That's just normal consumer behavior. All of your consumers do that. So if that's how they define the word quote in their mind, and the reason you get that second quote and that third quote is because what are you looking for? You're looking for the best deal, right? The best price. You want to feel confident that what you're paying for and the services you're going to get are a good deal. I mean, isn't that why you get the second and third quote? If it wasn't that reason, why would you go get a second and third quote? Of course it is. We all know that that's normal. So here's the thing. If it's true for you, if this is a common and normal buying behavior for just the average consumer, then here's what I would challenge you to do to be more honest with your prospect, but really to be more honest with yourself, is just finish the sentence. The next time you say to a prospect, let me give you a free quote, knowing what they hear when they hear the word quote and how they interpret it, knowing this up front, just finish the sentence. Let me give you a free quote because I know you're not buying today. And that's what happens when we give people a free quote. And I'm just talking about the marketing message. Well, Lord, we have to give a quote. How else are we going to give them the price? Well, that's different. The price of any product or service should validate the value the prospect gets out of it. And the price should be presented and stated as a fact, not a question. When we state the price, whatever the price is for, the response should be, how do I get started? And that the reason that we should be getting that response is because the prospect has already told us what problem they want to solve. We have carried on a conversation with them about the impact of that problem to them, their family, whatever the situation is. We've gotten a commitment from them that it's important for them today, right now, to solve that problem. We've gone through the 5+1 qualifications for the most profiled prospect that buys from us. So we're only spending our time with prospects that are most likely to buy from us. And when we give that price, we've already trial closed them at least 4 different times, and they've already said, how do I get this? If we don't get away from using marketing messages that have a connotation and an understanding in the prospect's mind that results in the prospect already believing that you know that they're not going to buy from you, then we're going to continue to struggle. I mean, if they get a quote to them, to the consumer, are they getting the quote to make a buying decision or to compare to the next quote? And if we, keeping with Steve Covey, keeping the end in mind, if the end is we want them to go get another quote, then we should keep saying, let me give you a free quote. But if the end result is that we want them to do business with us, and I don't know why we use a marketing message specifically designed for them in their mind to interpret it to mean now they can go get another quote, because that's not what I want them to do with me. What is their experience with the word quote? I mean, just keep in mind what their definition is. And my guess is if you look at how you make your buying decisions as a consumer, that you have the same interpretation of the word quote. Did they get that quote to make a buying decision, or did they get that quote to compare to the next quote? And is that what you want them to do? Is that how you expect to run your business? And if you, in fact, don't want them to do that, then what are we doing that sets that situation up where they interpret it and feel like that's the next step for them? Well, of course, we don't want to do it. Of course, we don't want them to do that. It's ridiculous to think that. So here's my question for you. Why are you telling them to engage in a behavior where you already know what they'll do? Not buy from you today and get another quote. Why are we engaging in that behavior? We, in the financial service industry and in all industries, but in the financial service industry, we've made ourselves a commodity by default. And then salespeople and companies spend thousands of dollars trying to train salespeople how to handle "I want to think about it" objection, when we have programmed the consumer for decades to think in their mind, oh, I got a free quote so I can compare it to the next quote. If we want the consumer to view us as being different, then don't we have to actually be different? Don't we have to do something different? Asking questions about how they use a product or service. In other words, talk to them about the things they use the most in the order they use those things. Then asking tie-down questions. Remember, questions gather information, objections disclose information. So asking tie-down questions, that provides a better opportunity to engage in a problem-based sales presentation. And then asking a question or offering a service we already know the answer to. Just finish the sentence. If you're going to use the word quote, can I give you a quote? Just finish the sentence, because I know you're not going to buy today. And if you're looking for a different way of doing that, tune in each week, because we're going to keep talking about the different ways of doing that. And in the upcoming visits, I'm going to talk about questions, presentations, closing, and I'm going to really take a deep dive in all the psychology of all that. Phrases like, let's see what price range we can stay in. So I know some of you are thinking, well, Lord, if we don't use the word quote, what can we use? Let's see what price range we can stay in. When you think about how much money you want to set aside a month to manage these growing costs, what were you thinking about? 0 to 50, 50 to 100, or more than $100 a month? So there's a ton of ways we can frame this. Let's put together some price options for you. Notice we use the word let's. We make it a team. I'm aligning myself with the prospect, talking about ranges, options. Those are all power words. Those are words that open up the prospect's ears. And it gets the prospect to start giving his tacit agreement that these are things they want to explore. When you think about how much a month you want to budget, what figure did you not want to go over? Now, read that again. When you think about how much a month you want to budget, what figure do you not want to go over? So, and here's the tag onto that. If they say, well, no more than $100 a month. If they say, well, I only want to go about $100 a month, you go, but not more than. And if they say, well, not more than 150, now you have a window. See, there's a whole bunch of different ways we can do this, other than, let me give you a quote. Because once they get the quote in their mind, what's the next thing for them to do? Go in and get the second quote, right? But if I say, when you think about how much a month you want to budget for this, what figure do you not want to go over? When they give me a figure, then I can go into my trial close and my transition phrase. Let me show you how this works. And the inference is, we've agreed that's the figure we're going to stay in. So once I give the price, there's no surprise for them. They already know, because we agreed to that. There's other ways to figure the price than using quote. And if you do say, let me give you a quote, just finish the sentence, because I know you're not buying today. So that's all I'm saying. I don't know if the sales training we've had has created this monster called let me give you a quote. I don't know if that's what has happened. I don't know if the training we've received has resulted in us viewing our role as giving quotes. or if that's just what the marketplace is now. But I knew this. I know the highest earning salespeople out there are the salespeople who understand dominant buying behaviors, who value their time, who project a professional, realistic, human interaction with their prospects in a way that the prospect sees them as someone that they think can help them solve a problem. And at that point, the price becomes a validation of the value they receive. So we're going to keep experimenting with this. Click on the link below, type in your questions. Let me know what you think about this. What do you think about giving quotes? What do you think about free trials? How has that impacted you? Is it doing well? Are you writing a ton of business doing that? Are you doing bad for that? And then check in every week because we're going to start exploring more and more of this. Hey, have a great Sunday, and we'll talk to you next time.